On June 25th, we finally got the UFO report that was due by the Pentagon to Congress. So it was released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, and it was called Preliminary Assessment Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. So we've been waiting for this report for 180 days, ever since then President Trump signed it into law while he was signing the COVID bill. Someone added this provision for this, UFO report, and we now have the government officially commenting on it. Now, I'm mixed on this report as someone who is massively into UFOs and aliens and who has been into this topic for 15 years. There's some positives from this report, but there's also a bunch of negatives. Let me start by the positives. For once, it exists. I'm happy that there's, an official document coming out from the government addressing UFOs. They're not completely discounting the topic. They're saying that they want more money to study it. They're mentioning that they looked at 144 cases from 2004 up until today. They mentioned that there's been a bunch of near misses between American military planes and these weird unidentified flying objects. They're saying that a lot of them show signs of propulsion that they don't understand. They need more money and better science to be able to study this. They need more data. They need the Navy and the Air Force to have better ways of reporting these sightings for them to make better analysis. And to me, that's all great. The government wants to officially look into UFOs. It's an enigma. It's a mystery that they want to understand. Great, right? I should be happy. Except that these UFO sightings have been happening at the very least from the fucking 40s. And we know that. And we know that the government knows about them. Just the fact that they're pretending that they have no idea what this stuff is. And hey, give us more money. We can figure it out. Bro, what have you guys been doing for the past fucking 80 years? This is what upsets me. I'm happy that the government is talking about UFOs. I'm happy that they're taking proactive steps to study them and to try to bring more data to Congress and to us, the people. But they're pretending that nothing before 2004 and the Tic Tac ever happened. What about Roswell? What about Project Blue Book? We know you guys were studying UFOs for decades. What happened with all that data? Do you think we're just going to forget? What about the Phoenix Lights? What about Robert Salas and Malmstrom Air Force Base, where UFOs hovered over our nuclear bases and disabled our nuclear weapons? Did the government never study any of this stuff? We know they did. We know that they're probably trying to back engineer a bunch of the crashed ships. My problem with this report is that it pretends that none of this ever happened and that we're only looking from 2004 up to now. In the report and before the report, the US government is trying to be pretty adamant in saying that that technology isn't theirs. Maybe it's Chinese, maybe it's Russian. We know it's not ours. I don't necessarily believe them. You know what I mean? I don't believe the U.S. government. Why should I believe a government that has been lying about UFOs and aliens for 80 years when they suddenly tell me, hey, we don't have any technology that looks like that? Why should I believe you? You've done nothing but lie for decades. The one thing I tell myself to kind of ease my concerns with this whole thing is that, look, we know that the government has been lying about aliens since the 40s at the very least. Okay, even some of the people who are responsible for bringing us all of this new information, like Lou Elizondo, who used to work at the Pentagon, even he will tell you that there was even a crash in the 30s in Italy and that the Italians sent fragments of that crashed ship to the United States before Roswell ever happened. That's Lou Elizondo admitting that. I think what's happening is that the government is trying to reboot the whole topic of UFOs. What do I mean by reboot? Well, if you bring someone in from the street who's never paid attention to the UFO topic, who doesn't care, they don't know what Roswell is, they don't know anything. If you sit them down and tell them, hey, let me tell you about UFOs and aliens, and you start throwing all that information in their face, Roswell, Phoenix Lights, 1967, Malmstrom Air Force Base, Bob Lazar, all that shit, I think that person is going to get overwhelmed with information fairly quickly. You know what I mean? I think very quickly they're going to think this is a crazy topic. And also, the UFO topic has been around for so long, and there's been so much information that has never been verified because the government just wouldn't verify anything, that there's a lot of bullshit in the UFO topic. So I wouldn't blame anyone, a newcomer, who thinks it's mostly bullshit and crazy, wacky stuff. I don't blame them. So I think maybe this is a way for the government to refocus people's attention. You know what I mean? Let's just focus on these military cases starting in 2004. Ignore all that older other stuff. We'll get to it later. Once we get the general population up to speed on the UFO thing, once enough people know about the Tic Tac, they know about all these other UFO sightings, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, stuff that has been happening in 2014, 2015, then we can slowly start to unravel what happened in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. Then once the people are more comfortable with that stuff, we can open the doors to what happened in the past. Maybe that's what they're doing. That's what I'm telling myself, at least. Do I think that's really the case? No, I think the U.S. government is more than happy to have the general population forget about Roswell, forget about all that older stuff, because they would have to admit that they've been lying to us for 80 years. They don't want to do that. They would have to admit to us that they have certain technologies that they probably don't want to admit to. So this is what disappoints me about this report. I'm happy it exists. I'm happy we have the government officially looking into UFOs now. They want more information. They want more data. They want to give it to the American people. Great. What about the last 80 years? What about Roswell, New Mexico? What about the older crashes? What about Maelstrom Air Force Base? What about the Phoenix Lights? What about all these thousands of UFO sightings that have been reported and seen over decades? Are we just going to pretend none of that happens and we're just going to take the government's word for it? Oh, it's not our technology. Bro, why should we believe you? So that's my main thing. I'm just going to try to remain patient. Okay, I hope this report leads to more reports. I hope it leads to congressional hearings. I hope it leads to us getting more data, but I hope that they don't try to fool us into thinking that this started in 2004. We know this shit has been going on for decades. Okay, the most credible story that I ever talk about is the aerial school in Zimbabwe that happened in 1994. That is 10 years before the Tic Tac in 2004. So it is not enough, okay? It's good enough for now to get the ball rolling. Let's see if it leads to some congressional hearings. Let's see if it leads to more reports. Let's see if it actually leads to some kind of disclosure. But I want to know the truth about what happened in Roswell. I want to know the truth about what's been happening for the last 70 years. I'm not satisfied with just the bare minimum, and I'm not going to kiss the government's feet or grovel at their feet for throwing us crumbs. This is why I'm not celebrating this report. This is why I don't think this is the greatest thing to ever grace us. No, I think it's okay. There's no new information in this, okay? All I see is the government trying to downplay the UFO topic and trying to ignore the last 70 years of this topic. And it's on us. It's on the general population. Do the research. If you're interested in UFOs at home, don't just follow up on the Tic Tac and everything that's been happening since 2004. Immerse yourself in the history of this topic, because it's very important that we have an informed population. Because once the government tries to play their games, they're not going to be able to play their games and pull their shit if we're informed. So that's what I wanted to say. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not really optimistic. We got to keep the pressure up, but if we just keep getting these little drips of information, I'm not going to be satisfied. Like, honestly, I'm 30 years old. I just want to know what the fuck is going on before I die, okay? If it takes 20 years, if it takes 25, 30 years, I don't care. Let it happen before I fucking die. Because if this is going to take another 70 years of just drip, 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 here's a little bit of information, it's not going to be enough.